Welcome to the Water is Life podcast, where we discover how to flow from feeling dry, stuck, stagnant, and dehydrated to feeling juicy, crystal clear, and quenched. Because water is life, and getting to know water is life-changing. I invite you to surf the deep mysteries of our liquid source of life, from practical health strategies to philosophical explorations of water as a vessel of consciousness, so that you can experience the empowerment of being a living body of water starting today. Are you ready? Grab a glass of water and let's dive in.
The Japanese many years later realized that hydrogen appears to be effective for glaucoma. Again, a lot of eye issues, and for a lot of people don't know, the eyes are actually connected to the brain. And so this is a pretty amazing thing here that we're talking about. And I think that in the future, it's actually going to prolong life in a very odd and strange way. When I say prolong life, I mean, I'm talking potentially living hundreds and hundreds of years.
Before we get our feet wet with this week's topic, make sure you're subscribed so you always get the current episode. And if you take a minute to write a review, this helps others to find this wellspring of hydrating wisdom too. I pour out my thanks to you for taking the time to water this podcast so it can grow by sharing your review. Hi, Greg. Thanks so much for being with us today, all the way out in Japan. I know it's a late night for you, so thanks for joining to share with our audience a little bit about water and hydrogen.
Thanks for being available at such a weird hour too. We're both on weird hours.
We are. It's a nice rainy early morning here in Austin, Texas. I'm loving the ambiance of it right now. I'm curious if you can share with our audience a little bit about how you first fell in love with hydrogen. What were your first aha moments when you started to recognize that there's more to water and more to hydrogen than we typically realize?
Well, I mean, for me, it was really just mostly medical issues. I had a lot of medical issues, and it's ironic because I specialized in the medical field. I worked in the medical field for 2 decades, maybe a little more. And basically, the issues that I had were just not going to be solved by the medical establishment, which is probably what's common for a lot of people. And so I had to find my own way out because my medical issues were quite severe. I had heart problems, I had tumors in my body. I had basically extreme arthritis. I had combined with an autoimmune issue, which caused a lot of inflammation in my body. So I literally couldn't pick up a remote control and change the channels on a television. That's how much my joints hurt. And so those are just some of the issues that I was having. And it was extremely painful. I had a lot of pain and basically the inability to walk because of the pain. So it was just, I had to find my own way. I read about hydrogen a long time ago when the first data first started coming out, and which was, very new at the time. And I read the medical data for quite some time thinking I'm a skeptic, so I didn't think it would really help me that much. And then after years of suffering, I just was like, okay. And I continued to read about it. So I was like, I need to just try something different. And of course, I had to learn about hydrogen, but I realized that not all hydrogen is created equal when I had to learn about the engineering, the medical protocols. Hence the reason I'm here in Japan right now is because really this is the mecca of hydrogen technology and even water technology. Actually, they know so much about water here that like the world doesn't know. They're so far ahead of everybody else. And by basically creating certain protocols that I ended up saving my life because I was an absolute mess. From everything I was told, even by medical professionals, I shouldn't even be alive anymore. So my body was an absolute mess, including my liver, my kidneys. Everything was just a crazy mess. And so that's how it all got started.
Wow, that's astounding. What an incredible miracle. That's beautiful. And were you mostly doing hydrogen gas inhalation or drinking hydrogen water? What was your primary focus at the time?
So basically, when I was first reading the medical data, they thought the hydrogen gas was the way to go. But the medical data really ended up showing that hydrogen water was actually much more effective. And then I ended up creating my own protocol where I used the hydrogen water with the hydrogen gas, which so far, now I should say, I'm not giving any medical advice. I'm not making any medical claims. And I'm not making any claims for or against any product or products. Everything stated in this video are my opinions. But that is also based, I'm a big data guy. So based on the data and then creating my own protocols, it really appears that the combination is ideal. So that's ultimately what I created, was a combination of the hydrogen gas with the hydrogen water, and even the equipment that I use is actually, there's a lot of hydrogen's become a little bit of a fad these days, and it really makes a difference on how you make it, how you use it, and the proper protocols if you want it to be effective. Because if you don't do it right, it's just really not going to work that good, in my opinion.
Right. So rather than taking shots in the dark, it's best to have a conscientiously created protocol based on what you're dealing with health-wise. And you typically use the Lord's Hydrofix, right?
Yeah. So ultimately, the Lourdes Hydrofix Premium, it is a Japanese device. The majority of hydrogen devices are made in China. To be quite honest, when I was learning about the way to make hydrogen properly, China was definitely not one of the stuff that you'd want to use. And I followed the medical data, and the medical data led me completely to Japan. This is actually why I'm here. And that was the device ultimately that in the end not only saved my life, but ended up helping me overcome all the medical problems that I had. And then, of course, I've seen it do a lot for other people. I mean, just some of the medical issues that I've seen it literally make disappear, which is, a pretty bold statement, but I've seen people with high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol. I've seen macular degeneration. I've seen all sorts of gut issues, autoimmune issues, even dementia and TBI, like traumatic brain injuries. And even there's a lot of data for things like cancer. And there's just so many crazy things that it's been so effective for. I mean, what's wild is that they don't talk about it more, because based on the medical data, I mean, we're not talking like, you know, 50 studies or 20 studies or even 100 studies. There's over 2,000 studies at this point. The molecular hydrogen, we're talking about molecular hydrogen. A lot of people try to quote unquote, talk about other modalities of using hydrogen like Brown's gas or other things that are not backed by the medical data. And so right now it's already medically approved in Japan. A lot of people are unaware of that. And it's a really big deal. I mean, it's a really big deal. And yet just about no doctor in America even knows about it. So it's weird actually at this point, but it's extremely effective and has changed a lot of lives and pretty amazing.
It's incredible. Would you mind sharing some of those stories of some of the miracle healings that you've seen? Since your first healing that you experienced, what have been some of the most astounding or impactful things that you've witnessed from hydrogen in yourself or in others?
There's so many. I mean, I've seen, like, just recently, there was a really big one of a person with Parkinson's now who hasn't walked for a long time, I believe over a year. And I just recently saw footage of them walking. I release some videos. I have a YouTube channel where I release all this stuff. And there's been people with like dementia or Alzheimer's. And they literally, the one that I released was of a woman who didn't recognize her own daughter. And they started using the hydrogen from the device that I use too. And literally the mother just transformed, and the daughter was taking pictures of her, and I posted them actually on my YouTube channel, and she started recognizing her daughter, being able to speak again. There's a really great video that the official company has on their own YouTube channel. And I worked with this woman, so I know that it's actually true, because I hate to say this, but in my opinion, there's a lot of fake stuff out there, including fake stuff from companies that are always trying to, sell stuff. I hate to say that, but that's been the truth of it. But this particular woman had TBI, which is traumatic brain injury. I mean, when I talked to her, she could barely remember her own name from 10 to 20 seconds afterwards, and she would just forget. And she actually contacted me. It's an interesting story, because she contacted me saying, "Thank you for saving my life." And I was like, "Who is this person? I don't remember saving your life." And it turns out that it was this woman who I did help, because people who contact me, I do help them with all these protocols that I've created. And it turned out that hydrogen helped her so much that her TBI, the reason she said thank you for saving her life was because I didn't know, but she told me later that she was going to take her life. And it was a very sad situation. And she definitely had issues. And her results were, again, so dramatic that she did a testimonial video with it's a YouTube channel. I think it's called Holy Hydrogen. I think it's the name of the YouTube channel. And so those are just some of the few. I mean, there's been so many people with a lot of eye issues, glaucoma, just improving their vision, macular degeneration. Again, a lot of brain issues, lung issues. There was a guy I worked with who smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day for 50 years. This guy has so many issues being able to properly saturate the oxygen levels in his blood. And so it was a major problem. And what people don't realize is we're already breathing in roughly 21% oxygen already in the atmosphere. So it's more about how to assimilate that oxygen properly. And the hydrogen helps with that. Start using hydrogen. And he was on oxygen 24/7. He was able to get off of oxygen for many hours out of the day, which before he could only do it for minutes.
Friends, are you thirsty for spring water in its purest, wildest form, untouched by chemicals or processing, but maybe you don't have a nearby spring where you can harvest your own? We've got you covered with Alive Waters. They deliver fresh, raw, unprocessed spring water straight from a pristine, natural primary spring right to your doorstep. This water is wild and undomesticated, just like nature intended, packed with minerals and full of life force energy. And the best part? It's delivered in stunning, eco-friendly Flower of Life glass bottles designed to energize the water even further with sacred geometry. Delivery is available in Austin, San Antonio, Miami, San Francisco, LA, Portland, and New York. If you're not in one of those areas, no worries, you can still order their beautiful Flower of Life glassware from anywhere. Just head over to waterislife.shop for all the details and use the code WATERISLIFE for 15% off your order.
Maybe 2 minutes, and now he's able to do something like 3-4 hours, and he's continuously improving. So there's just so many stories that are unbelievable. It's hard to believe, but it's really something amazing that people really do need to know about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, hydrogen should be a household name. Everyone needs to know about these things. I heard a story recently from a friend of mine who she runs a wellness podcast. And what first got her into health was the fact that her daughter had really bad vaccine-induced autism. And her daughter's a teenager at this point, and just extreme levels of brain inflammation. And they're incredibly into biohacking. They've tried absolutely everything. I mean, her mother runs a health podcast, for goodness sakes. She's tried everything under the sun, everything on the market. And her daughter was still having violent outbursts and it's still nonverbal and this sort of thing. And they got her on the hydrogen gas inhalation. And she said it's been the single most effective thing that they have ever tried, bar none. And they've tried every biohacking thing on the planet. That angry outbursts stopped and that her daughter feels a sense of peace and calm now. And it makes sense because when you're breathing in the hydrogen gas, it's one of the best things for that brain inflammation. But I think you made a really important point, which is that a lot of these companies will make claims based on what hydrogen in general can do. A lot of companies will make claims based on what they're showing in some of the case studies and the clinical trials, but that doesn't always necessarily equate to what their products specifically can do because there's such a broad range of quality when it comes to hydrogen generation. So can you speak a little bit to the difference between quality and products and why it's so important to invest in a good one? Because, most of the people who come to me for suggestions or recommendations about hydrogen products, I have to be brutally honest with them and say most of the things on the market do more harm than good, that it would be better not to use that product at all than to use it. Even if you are getting a little bit of hydrogen from it, they usually do more harm than good. So can you speak a little bit to the qualitative differences in some of the products out there?
Yeah, you're absolutely making a really good point because I thought they were all created the same too when I first started. And so there's these cheap little bottles, there's hydrogen pills, there's even devices that use something called sodium hydroxide or lye, which is, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous. And so it really comes down to medical grade hydrogen, but medical grade hydrogen used to be almost impossible to make or extremely expensive. And so I had to learn all about like engineering. I had to learn about the science of metallurgy, the science of how to make hydrogen because there's multiple ways to make it. And like I said, it all led me to Japan. And what was ironic is that it all led me to the number one hydrogen company in the world. I didn't even know which company that was. And so it led me to this company. The official name is holyhydrogen.com. And it's a Japanese product. And when I used that, it changed everything. because I had tried different modalities of hydrogen, really not getting results. And then ultimately, I even had a really severe heart condition that I was told was going to end my life, that I needed open heart surgery for. I was scared to death about it. And I tried different hydrogen products, nothing changed it. And then when I used the one from Japan, my heart condition literally went away in about 6 months.
Mm.
And that was remarkable because I had had this issue for easily over 2 decades. And I think it was closer to 3 decades. So I had had this issue for a long time. And no doctor thought it was just going to go away. In fact, when it did go away, they were pretty shocked. So the way that you make hydrogen totally matters. And if you make it the wrong way, this is what's unfortunate. In my opinion, based on all my research, it actually can potentially be harmful, from leaching metals because of cheap Chinese metals to the way that you actually make the hydrogen, because there's numerous ways to make it. And like I said, chemicals, or even mixing it with things like oxygen. You actually want pure hydrogen. That's what the medical data is behind. And so I just follow the medical data. I'm a real data driven kind of guy. And so it just changed everything. So yeah, the way you make it absolutely makes a difference. And as you had the testimonial from your friend, the testimonials just keep pouring in. I had so many, it's actually unbelievable. And I've been doing this for many years. And that was the whole reason I created my YouTube channel, because I suffered a ton from my medical issues. And I just really wanted the world to know not only what helped me, but what could potentially help them. Because when you're suffering and the medical establishment doesn't give you a lot of options, and then there's all these quote unquote so-called, whether it's health gurus or people who are talking about all these different supplements and stuff, it was really frustrating actually for me. I tried a ton of stuff too, by the way, and I threw a bunch of money away and stuff that literally didn't work. So it was very frustrating. So that's why I went the route that I went, just trying to find my own way. And now I share the stuff that I ultimately learned, and it's helped a lot of people throughout the years. I'm actually working with a ton of people throughout the years to help them with different protocols. And the results have been unbelievable, actually. Hard to believe sometimes what hydrogen can do.
It really is incredible. And there's such a mystery around hydrogen in general. It's such an incredible atom, such an incredible molecule, molecular hydrogen, of course. Can you share some of the discoveries that you've made about hydrogen specifically that have really astounded you or blown your mind? What is it about hydrogen that makes it so uniquely healing and therapeutic? It almost seems to be a conscious molecule.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. But what I would say, I mean, I just recently found out how it's affecting the skin. That's one of my newest videos, is literally people who stop getting burned, including myself. Like, you'll be out in the sun and you won't get burned. And it's what? And then somebody recently had skin cancer and their skin cancer fell off, which was absolutely insane. And tons of testimonials about the skin, because the skin is basically the largest organ of the human body. And hydrogen, I just think it's almost like it's really weird to say this, but like a conscious molecule. And it is an ascension molecule. I mean, hydrogen literally ascends like a balloon. And it appears to be, in my opinion at least, the life molecule. If people were to watch my video 68, you see the life that it brings to the blood. If you were to see videos number 8, the life again, or the protection that it provides to the human body and the cells, it's literally hard to believe what it's doing. I've had doctors contact me, numerous doctors, where I remember a couple of them watched my video 68, and they said, that's just impossible. That's just not possible. And they wanted to dispute what I was showing. So they literally bought the same device that was used in the study, because it was a live blood analysis. And in that particular study, it's the same device that I use. They bought the same device, repeated the same study, trying to prove it wrong. And in the end, they couldn't believe it either. They said, this stuff's for real. The results came back exactly the same. And after they saw that, they became huge believers in hydrogen. I remember one of the people was, again, a doctor who started using it on her mother, who was like 96 years old, who could literally only stand up for 1 minute. And after using hydrogen for a while, she could literally stand up and walk around for 3-4 hours. So it's just been wild. I mean, when I say wild, it's unbelievable. I know it's going to change the world. And I think very few people know about it, let alone how to make it properly. But the Japanese are definitely at the forefront.
Incredible. So if hydrogen is the molecule of life and the molecule of ascension and this conscious molecule, what are your perspectives on oxygen?
Well, oxygen's interesting because oxygen, in my opinion, is I don't want to say this in a negative way, but it's the death molecule. And that's because oxygen oxidizes. And if you separate oxygen and hydrogen, oxygen drops to the ground, actually, just like a dead person would, and hydrogen ascends.
Friends, are you thirsty for spring water in its purest, wildest form, untouched by chemicals or processing, but maybe you don't have a nearby spring where you can harvest your own? We've got you covered with Alive Waters. They deliver fresh, raw, unprocessed spring water straight from a pristine, natural primary spring right to your doorstep. This water is wild and undomesticated, just like nature intended, packed with minerals and full of life force energy. And the best part? It's delivered in stunning, eco-friendly Flower of Life glass bottles designed to energize the water even further with sacred geometry. Delivery is available in Austin, San Antonio, Miami, San Francisco, LA, Portland, and New York. If you're not in one of those areas, no worries, you can still order their beautiful Flower of Life glassware from anywhere. Just head over to waterislife.shop for all the details and use the code WaterIsLife for 15% off your order.
And it doesn't mean that oxygen has no benefit. It's just that to me, it's more about the human body learning to utilize oxygen more effectively. And that's what hydrogen ultimately helps with, because life in the end is about balance of life and death. So we still need, quote unquote, the death to balance out the life, but we have over oxidation these days. There's a lot of recent medical data that's been stating literally what I've been saying for quite a few years, that we have over oxidation, we have oxidative stress, we have something like reactive oxygen species, which is ROS. And so these free radicals are types of oxygen, and hydrogen, in my opinion, helps balance it all out. So I think it's one of the simple, more major things we can do. But again, I'm not necessarily against oxygen, but just so people understand, if you were to look into deep sea diving, if you were to look what's actually in these tanks for deep sea diving, when you go deep, they use almost no oxygen, because it literally will cause too much oxidation, and actually can literally cause almost deadly amounts of oxygen. Oxygen can be basically too much, so you really have to limit it. But hydrogen, on the other hand, is extremely safe. And so what I've learned about the human body is that we can actually breathe in a lot of different things, a lot of different types of gases is what I'm trying to get at, and they affect us in different ways. So molecular hydrogen is like the best thing I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to highlight. What you just mentioned is that it's completely safe. There's no such thing as breathing in too much of it. There's no such thing as drinking in too much of it. It seems to be the panacea for everything. There are no contraindications. There are no side effects. I've had clients ask me sometimes, is it safe for my children to take? Should I maybe only give my children 1 glass of it a day? And it's no, the more, the better, honestly.
But you do have to follow certain guidelines as far as how much water the human body can handle. So according to the science, literally about 1 liter per hour is the maximum that the kidneys can take. And so typically, I mean, I don't use more than probably 3 liters a day, roughly. And that's just of the water. As far as the gas inhalation, I can inhale, well, at least from the device that I'm using, I can inhale pretty much all day long if I really wanted to.
I'm curious, you're there in Japan now, and I know you are passionate and devoted to your hydrogen mission. What is the current leading edge of your research? What are you most excited to explore and discover next? Are there any unsolved mysteries about hydrogen that you're working on?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm basically working on something right now that I can't say too much about it, but in the end, I'm doing some research in regards to hydrogen. I mean, hydrogen does appear to be anti-aging. So they did some research here in Japan, actually, where they literally test the blood and tell you how old your blood is, which is separate from obviously how old you are. I mean, you can have somebody who's literally 20 years old and their blood could be like they're 50 or 80 years old. I've seen that before. And so what I basically have found, there was a research study where they were using properly made hydrogen, was like medical grade, super clean, again, properly made. And they tested their blood, and it was actually of a gentleman, a guy who was roughly 42 years old. And this particular guy, when they started using the hydrogen on him for 1 year, and they tested his blood after a year of using medical grade hydrogen properly, and he was only using the hydrogen water, his blood ended up being 5 years younger after 1 year of using hydrogen. So that was a pretty big deal. And personally, I know there's going to be more data coming out, which I can't talk too much about, but I think hydrogen is going to change the game, not only for medical problems, which I've already seen, even stuff that I've done before, even the Japanese before they figured it out, like glaucoma. My father was one of the first examples where he had glaucoma for over 3 decades, and I did some protocols with him as glaucoma went away. The Japanese many years later realized that hydrogen appears to be effective for glaucoma. Again, a lot of eye issues, and for a lot of people don't know, the eyes are actually connected to the brain. And so this is a pretty amazing thing here that we're talking about. And I think that in the future, it's actually going to prolong life in a very odd and strange way. When I say prolong life, I mean, I'm talking potentially living hundreds and hundreds of years. So,
what would that look like? In what ways could we implement hydrogen for that level of longevity?
well, I mean, right now, as far as what's accessible to the average person, like I said, I mean, there's literally a device that the Japanese developed, which is, in my opinion, very affordable for the average person. And it makes both the water and the gas. And I think the first thing to focus, yeah, the Lourdes Hydrofix Premium, and it makes both the water and the gas. And I'm going to be releasing some footage on my YouTube channel here very soon that actually shows some stuff that it's doing that technically was deemed impossible in the world of hydrogen. Nobody else can do it. This company's number one for a reason. They're like, light years ahead of everybody in regards to the technology. And just seeing the medical problems virtually, again, I'm not trying to make claims, but stuff that I've literally seen disappear. And I'm even working with some clients right now. And I like things that we can measure. So meaning, again, people's blood glucose levels, people's blood pressure numbers, getting off of pharmaceutical drugs, things like that. And even just people who have issues and they just have no solution, because the medical establishment, I mean, they tend to just want to throw pain pills at you or anti-inflammatories or a lot of other pills that really don't do much for you. So those are the really big things. As far as, prolonging life and stuff like that, I can't go into too much detail. First, we're working on overcoming medical problems. And then I'll be getting more into life extensions, and we're talking something life-changing for the world that, again, very few people know about. So the fact that we're talking about it, people are not going to hear this almost anywhere. And I got to be careful about what I can and cannot share.
Understandable. There's so much about hydrogen that we're really just on the cutting edge of. We're really just on the precipice. So little is known about hydrogen. I don't think most people realize how recently it began to be studied. I mean, you said there are over 2,000 research articles on it now. It's been very well studied, but it's still relatively new. So there's so much left to learn, not just when it comes to the realm of health and biology and medicine, but in the realm of agriculture, in the realm of energy, in the realm of economics. There's a buzzword in the hydrogen space where they talk about the hydrogen economy. So can you share a little bit about what that's about and what would the world be like, not only in terms of health and medicine, but what would the world be like if humanity truly learned from and partnered with water and partnered with hydrogen? What is the more beautiful world that you see as possible when we move from treating water as a resource to treating water as the source and recognizing that hydrogen is truly the foundation of life?
Not to get like too spiritual about everything, but there's definitely a spiritual component to hydrogen and water. And, people talk about like the pineal gland, which is literally a gland. There's literally brain scans. And I haven't talked about it a lot, but I can say that in my opinion, hydrogen has a massive effect on this particular part of the brain, which is why I think it helps with things like traumatic brain injury, the TBI, dementia, Alzheimer's, and stuff like that. And I do think that hydrogen is going to change the world of energy. It's going to change the world of medicine. I definitely think it's going to change the world of agriculture. But right now, the biggest thing that I've been focusing on is just people who are suffering from medical issues. And I say that because I had suffered from medical issues. And I've known a lot of people who have. And so the way that hydrogen could potentially, in my opinion, help with that is a big thing. But I think that we're entering, this is getting more in the spiritual realm, even though there's a lot of medical data. And I think that the real spiritual part about it is literally what they call the age of Aquarius. I think the age of Aquarius is the knowledge of water, ultimately the knowledge of hydrogen. There's literally, even the word hydrogen itself means that which becomes water. And so it's a really big deal. And I mean, I'm really into water too. I mean, a lot of people don't know, like here, I'll just show you. This is actually a third-party lab study of water. And what people don't realize is there's so many contaminants. I mean, we're talking pages so many things. And so the things that are found in water are shocking. And so when people are trying to improve their health, I always tell them that cleaning your water the proper way, because your average water filter is not going to be enough. And carbon distillation, well, in fact, if anybody wants to know what I do, because I follow the research, it's a website called mypurewater.com. And these carbon distillers fully clean water. And then hydrogen is a gas. So we're actually using water as a carrier for this particular gas. And that's how we get it into our body, or just breathing in the pure gas. And so this is really the ultimate way of transforming health, because there's a lot of things that you can do for your health, but this is probably the easiest thing that I've ever seen. And it's actually the most effective thing I've ever seen. And this is literally what, quote unquote, changed my life. And as far as the Japanese research too, on top of it all, have you ever heard of a book called The Hidden Messages in Water? And so this was actually a Japanese guy too. Here's this picture right here, but a Japanese guy who discovered that water had what they call memory. And everybody thought he was a lunatic, and including myself. I thought that the Japanese are so light years ahead of us when it comes to this stuff. It's actually hard to believe, because when I first saw the data, this guy was like talking to water, playing music to water, and he's got so much proof. There's just countless pages. I could just show you countless pictures of the way that water reacts. And I think people know that this is true by the way that even plants react to the way that we treat plants, the way that you talk to a plant, the way that you water the plant, and just the attention that you give it. People who have a green thumb, and it really shows you that love and intention have a powerful, effective energy to it. And I remember doing my own experiments in regards to different types of water, and hydrogen water, by the way, and the way that it affects plants is unbelievable. I've released videos about it, and they just have no idea that hydrogen is that not only the life molecule, but when you give that energy to the molecule, it seems to be the most receptive from everything that I found. And so, it's powerful. I don't know what else to tell you. It seems too good to be true. And still the world doesn't know about it. And we're talking about it. I only hope that people, I really hope that people share this video a lot, because for people who they love and care about, who have a lot of medical problems, and they don't realize that this could be something that could really transform their lives. So hopefully people really hear the message.
I hope so too. And thank you so much, Greg, for all you're doing to get the message out there and to devote your life to this important topic. And how can people get in touch with you? How can they stay in tune with what you're up to in the world?
Well,
and if they're interested in getting your protocols in particular, if they or someone they know is dealing with some sort of health challenge and they're interested in using hydrogen and the Lord's Hydrofix to help them with these health challenges, how can they find your protocol?
Well, so, I have a few videos, but usually I tell people just email me. My email is uprising144k@gmail.com, but I have a YouTube channel, and I try to put everything out there for free. So my YouTube channel is called Uprising144k. And people can literally just go there, watch a lot of videos. If they have questions beyond that, they can email me. And I think the company's got some pretty decent videos. They probably don't have the level of videos that I do, but that's the best way that I can say, I have over 400 videos. I've been doing this for a long time. I discovered hydrogen kind of way before everybody. And again, it saved my life. So it transformed my life, which is the whole reason I make, the videos that I make. And that's the best that I can say. Hopefully that will help people out enough. And if not, just email me and I'll do the best I can do. But I will say that the protocols are always based depending on the particular person's medical issue, just to make proper changes. But again, the things I've seen are unbelievable. Things I've done with people in my own family, and some of it just seems too outrageous. But when you have nothing left, especially from the medical establishment, they're not helping us these days. And that's what's very sad. And again, it's weird that this would be medically approved in some countries, but not in others. But I think in the future, hopefully that will change. But in the meantime, people can email me, and I do my best to reach back out to everybody.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again so much, Greg, for coming and sharing with us. And I'm sure this has been inspiring for so many people, as it has been for me, to hear some of these stories. And just never ceases to astound me. I'm always in awe of hydrogen. The more I learn about hydrogen, the more I'm absolutely in awe. So thank you so much for sharing, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your late night there in Japan.
Absolutely. Thanks. Okay. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you next time.
And as always, everyone be well and stay hydrated.
Friends, if you're loving what you're learning on the podcast and you want to dive deeper, check out the courses, webinars, workbooks, and private coaching available at waterislife.academy. These are on-demand, lifetime access programs where we dive into brand new concepts not taught here on the podcast. And if you're ready to optimize your water to be a healthy wellspring of hydration, discover the water alchemy tools that are available at waterislife.shop, and let's connect on Instagram at JenIsabelFriend. I look forward to seeing you there. Stay hydrated and be well.